I want us to look at the big picture. Now, menopause is often talked about in a physical sense, but what are the hidden emotional and mental health shifts women should be prepared for during the season?
hmm So first, I would say that menopause is a neurological and a hormonal shift. And so that being said, is nothing that the woman did or should have done or could do to stop menopause or not even get to menopause. It is biological. It's a transition in life, and with that transition, so it's not just physical, but it's also mental, emotional. So a woman may cry more than she normally did. She may feel sad, and that sadness, we also call it depression. She may even feel anxious. Anxiety is kind of the opposite of depression, where a woman may even experience sudden panic attack that she's never had before.
Good night, everyone. And welcome to another episode of the Healthy Reset. I am Nurse Maria, Nurse Joseph, as a woman's sexual health nurse and a menopause expert. I've worked over the years with many women who feel overwhelmed by mood changes, low desire, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion during this transition. And I also help them understand what's really happening in their bodies and how to regain balance, confidence, and control. Now, in this video, we are going to talk about why menopause impacts your mental health and emotional health more than most people realize. How stress and past experiences can amplify symptoms and practical ways to support your nervous system so that you can feel grounded and like yourself again. So stay with me. I have a special guest who I'm honored to have with us tonight, who would help you understand more about this experience. Tonight, I'm honored to welcome a woman whose work sits at the powerful intersection of mental wellness, healing, and empowerment. Now, Dr. Joanne Frederick is a university professor, licensed mental health therapist, CEO, radio host, and the author of Copology, with more than 25 years of experience helping individuals, communities navigate emotional resilience and trauma recovery. She is also Mrs. Unity World USA and the founder of We Rise, which is a platform dedicated to rejuvenating, inspiring, supporting, and enlightening people through emotional wellness, education, and service. Now, Dr. Joanne brings a deep understanding of how life transitions, including menopause, can affect mental and emotional health. And tonight she's here to help us make sense of what we are feeling and how to move forward with clarity and strength. So Dr. Joanne Frederick, we are glad to have you here and welcome to the Healthy Reset.
Thank you. And thank you so much for allowing me to be in this space tonight. I'm so happy to be here. And just to give you all some context, I am in the USA right now. I'm in Maryland, the state of Maryland.
And how is the weather over there, by the way? I know you all had a big
Cold.
storm.
Oh, very cold and icy and snowy. Oh, I need to be where you are.
But, I mean, I'm glad you're here, and I have a lot of relatives talking about that storm as well.
Yes, yes. And talking about relatives, just for the viewers to know, I am Trinidadian. Both of my parents born and raised in Trinidad. I've been back and forth since I was a child. So I am Trinidadian. That's how I see myself.
So the ladies are welcoming you, Miss Fredericks,
Thank
right?
you.
They are welcoming you, right? So I have some, some questions I have to, initiate the talk tonight, and I want us to look at the big picture. Now, menopause is often talked about in a physical sense, but what are the hidden emotional and mental health shifts women should be prepared for during this season?
So first, I would say that menopause is a neurological and a hormonal shift. And so that being said, is nothing that the woman did or should have done or could do to stop menopause or, not even get to menopause. It is biological. It's a transition in life. And with that transition, so it's not just physical, but it's also mental, emotional. So a woman may cry more than, she normally did. She may feel sad, and that sadness, we also call it depression. She may even feel anxious. Anxiety is kind of the opposite of depression, where a woman may even experience sudden panic attack that she's never had before. Some other psychological things are feeling really stressed, feeling very tired, not motivated. And so some of that is the mental impact of menopause.
Okay. So in this experience as well, many women feel like they are losing themselves during menopause. They are that essential person that they were, all the, just the feeling, that loss of that feeling of how they used to feel. Now, from your clinical experience, why does this happen and why is it more common than we think?
Yes. So the woman that's feeling like she's losing herself, she is changing. She's not the same person that she used to be. So her estrogen levels and progesterone levels are changing, and so that losing oneself is could even be changes of things she used to be able to do. So for example, her sexual drive may decrease. She may feel different sensations in her body that she never felt before. And again, I mentioned earlier, like this lack of desire to even get out of bed, go to work. And those are normal changes. Read the last part of that question because I want to make sure that I hit that point.
The last part of the question is, all right, why is it more common? That is from your clinical perspective, that sense of losing self, losing
Yes.
themselves. Why is it more common than we think?
Yep, it is common. It's common, but many women don't know that, right? Individually, especially if a woman did not learn about menopause, and even if you learn about menopause, somebody sit down and teach you, it is different for each person. So you kind of really don't know what you're experiencing until you're experiencing it and you're talking about it. Right. And so that's why it's common. It's just part of this hormonal and neurological change that's going on in the body.
Okay. Now, trauma and menopause, there is a connection between the two, right?
Yes. Yes.
Many women or many people on a whole, they have experienced trauma from childhood, adolescence, young adult life. And in many cases, a lot of women find that these feelings resurface during the menopausal transition. Now, so how can unresolved trauma resurface or intensify during menopause, even if a woman thought she had already dealt with it in the past?
Yeah, so let me talk a little bit about what trauma is. Trauma is any experience that a person has that has an impact on. But the thing about trauma is what's traumatic for me may not have been traumatic to you. And so it is the experience, right? How we view it and what happened. So a good example, there's also vicarious trauma, which is something that you saw. It didn't happen to you. So when we look at the news often, and we hear different stories, we get traumatized vicariously from the information, even though we wasn't there. But in our mind, we empathize. We feel what these people went through. We might even know the person or been through it. And so all of that is trauma. So because of that, trauma is never really resolved. Now, we can learn how to live effectively with trauma. We can learn how to manage trauma. We can learn how to, let me say, minimize or take care of the traumas, the symptoms of trauma. And when I talk about symptoms, I'm referring to sometimes people have memories, sometimes people have backflashes, sometimes people react. We call that a trauma response about something, and they don't even know why they react that way. But the trauma is unconsciously and sometimes consciously in the brain. And so now we take menopause, and it's a biological change where the trauma could come back up, right? Whether it is a thought, sometimes trauma or the symptoms of trauma is reactivated by a scent, a place, a person, a scenario. And so the resurface of trauma and menopause go hand in hand because the trauma is the psychological stuff that's going on that has happened. But again, you never overcome trauma. You don't get over an experience. When we have experiences, you can't erase it, but we can live well with it by dealing with it, talking about what that trauma is and how it had an impact on you.
So what you're saying, there are triggers to bring that trauma back, particularly during menopause, right?
Yes.
So when the anxiety, the mood swings, or emotional overwhelm show up suddenly, what are one or two grounding strategies women can use at that particular moment?
Yeah. So I would recommend women practicing these strategies before an event happened. And then now we have to pull from these tools. So one of those is breathing. When we're feeling this emotion, so whether it's anxieties, depression, sadness, we're breathing, right? And so we breathe where we open our mouth, we breathe in, and we breathe out through our nose. So sometimes, for example, when we cry, we try to hold it in, but we really got to let it out because that is a technique to help us through this trigger. That's what we call it. That's one. Another thing is a grounding technique where we identifying five things to keep us in the here and the now. We're identifying where we are, what do we see, what do we smell, what can we touch and feel. So can I touch my chair and feel that I am sitting on a chair? All of that brings us back and grounds us. And then something else too is actually talking about how we feeling. Sometimes you might not be in a predicament that you can talk, well, speak to somebody. We could also move, do something different. So let's say I'm laying in the couch and I'm watching TV and this trigger, this response come. Well, if I get up and go in the kitchen and do something else, that kind of helps slow it down. And it's almost like changing the topic, but you're changing where you are, what you're doing, and your mindset. Because now your brain have to think about, okay, let me walk to the kitchen, for an example. So those are some different grounding techniques that we can do to kind of stay balanced. But
Okay.
again, we should practice these techniques before being in that predicament.
Okay. Okay. So I want to deal with now a woman's identity and self-worth because that part has been very challenging during menopause. So menopause can challenge a woman's sense of identity, purpose, confidence. How can women rebuild self-trust and self-worth during this transition?
Yeah. So again, I love the whole thing about talking to somebody. Like all those thoughts in our head that we feel like we don't want to say, like, I'm not the same person as I used to be. I don't feel good, or I'm looking at myself and I don't like what I see. I don't like how I feel. We should be talking to someone, a good friend, somebody we trust, a mental health professional, maybe, about those inner thoughts, right? The other thing too is that we also have to have a positive self-talk to ourselves. So we get up in the morning, look in the mirror and say, I love me. I'm resilient. I've been through a lot, but I'm still here. I'm now X, Y, and Z age, and I'm blessed to even be in the menopause stage. That means I'm alive and my body is working. That's what that means. And I thank God for that. And so we have to talk positivity to ourselves. But if we do the opposite, where we like, oh gosh, I'm waking up and I got pain and I can't stand this and that and life is hard, and we speak in what we want to experience. So you want to speak the opposite so that you're experiencing. And all of that helps build self-confidence. So one of the things I've been doing a lot these days is building women's self-confidence because the crown that I wear is not just like, oh, yeah, it's a crown, put on the crown. The crown represents resilience and women empowerment. So no matter who you are, what you have, what you've been through, we always question our confidence. We always question, Can I do this? What's wrong with me? I'm changing. I don't feel the same. I don't look the same. I don't act the same. And so that's normal, those types of thoughts and feelings.
So what I like about this, what you're saying here, you're talking about the importance of being positive and the importance of talking positivity in your life, because words actually are very powerful. They can make or break you, right? So
Yeah.
that is a very, very, very important lesson there. I mean, I love that. You coined it the term copology. Now, what's
Yes.
the difference between coping just to survive menopause and truly healing through it?
What's the difference between coping, menopause, and truly healing? Okay. And then the term copology. Yes.
Copology.
Yep.
I like that term.
Copology. You like that?
Copology. Yeah.
Copology is a word that I created and trademarked. All it means is cope means how we deal with things. And opology is the study. So my thought as a therapist is if you study how to cope, no matter what come up, you'll be able to survive. Because coping is the same things that the doctors tell us, which is how you eating, how you sleeping, your water intake, what you're putting in your body, the people you're surrounding yourself with, getting your physicals, taking care of your mental care, your spirituality, meditating, praying, and your physical being. And when we do that, when things come up, it's the same techniques to cope. So that's whether we grieve in, we experience a loss, we experience change in our job, we experience changes in the world. Like those are the coping stuff. And so your question was, what's the difference between like coping,
To
healing,
survive
to
menopause.
survive? Say it again.
Yeah, what's the difference between just coping to survive menopause and actually truly healing through the transition?
Yeah. So to hear coping just to survive, it sounds like the menopause is beating you and you're defeated. You're just coping, you're just holding on, That's what it sounds like. But when you're surviving, you should be surviving, not just surviving, but also thriving, right? So that means you're in the menopause stage. How are you taking care of yourself and really embracing this as a life transition and not a diagnosis? The life transition, the difference between is that, again, we're women, you've lived long enough to see this change. There's nothing about you that you are exempt from this change. Like it's not going to happen to you. And so, for example, menopause goes across all culture, all generations, and all women, let me say. There's nothing that like, why you? Now, the difference might be the different age of the onset, right? A difference might be who know about menopause in advance and who didn't. I always share a story with me because I am in menopause. I didn't know anything about menopause, nor thinking about it. Mind you, I'm a therapist. So I tell people that even the doctors, the therapists, everybody experience the same things. And it doesn't mean that you know it. While I was sharing, I was fanning myself at a dinner table, and some of the women was like, "Do you want a fan?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Somebody gave me a fan out of her pocketbook. And in my mind, I'm like, who walks around with a fan? Is that normal? Sitting there fanning myself. Then later, the conversation was on menopause. Somebody asked me, "Are you in menopause?" And I'm like, I don't know. I don't really even know what it means. We talking, and then I went to my doctor, and he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know." So now that I know, what does that mean? That means that I'm not just coping. I don't want to just cope. I want to survive and thrive
That's
in
right.
menopause.
That's
And the
right.
thriving is you keep living, right? You have different ways of dealing with hot flashes, for example. There's all types of therapy. There are hormonal therapy. Here's another thing, the things that we intake. So sugar, alcohol can
That's right.
increase those symptoms, for
Oh,
example.
yes, that's true. And we deal with the menopause in a holistic
Yes.
way, because